Okay, so far from last week, I've got the main figure, and then I started to put the child figure on the lap. So the child is actually attached now, the legs, um, and then the figure is attached to the chair, and I have all these other parts that I still need to attach, including the head and the arms of the woman, and I need to make her feet, all those parts. If I wanted to make feet on the actual pedestal, I need to do that now, or maybe even the chair. But I think I'm just going to focus on simple things like just getting it all on there, and then maybe doing a little texturizing before I add. I will probably texturize the trees before I attach them, just so I don't have to go in and get in there in between the cracks and stuff to carve the texture into it. It's a good idea to kind of start with something. And I have a couple textural surfaces that I can press into my clay. I just love this flower brick. I think this is really a fun way to kind of get deep holes into the surface of my clay. And then of course I've always used this. I've been using this for like 15 years, this textile block from Pakistan. I got it in New Mexico. And it just, I don't know, the symbols of this pattern kind of have become part of my work because I use it so much. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I'm just going to kind of talk my way through it. I think I should maybe finish her arms, the top part of her arms, and then I'll make the fox, and then I'll attach the baby's head and her feet, and then I'll texturize stuff. And reminding you of what my figure drawing looks like. I've got the fox on the armrests. And here I have kind of a bigger pedestal in my drawing, and I ended up with the smaller one, so I might not even need these mushrooms. Plus, mushrooms seem a little bit cliche to me. You know, after I put them in there, I had that thought that maybe that symbol seemed a little cliche. So I might replace them with something else, maybe something a little bit more specific to me. You know, like I could think about where I was raised and the plants and animals that were around me at the time. You know, and maybe use a symbol that's really more deeply personal than the mushroom. You know, I don't, that poisonous red mushroom is not, I've never even seen one of those in real life. So it's more, that's just kind of more of a symbol of fantasy art than anything deeply personal to me. So I'm trying to think of, like, growing up, I grew up in the suburbs, so there weren't a whole lot of like wild animals around. We had possums in the backyard a lot. My dog always used to bark at them. Lots of squirrels, of course. I lived in the Bay Area. I grew up in Sunnyvale, which is South Bay, and so we had access to a lot of like hiking and natural parks. In those natural parks, I saw a lot of deer. Rancho San Antonio was one of the parks we walked in a lot, and there was a little farm there, so there were lots of pigs and cows and goats there. Of course, the wild animals that we could encounter, the ones that we were always scared of growing up, were the mountain lions. I don't know if anyone's seen that mountain lion video that's been sort of like rotating around Facebook and social media right now. It's terrifying. This man, this hiker, I can't remember what state it was in. It's not in California. He catches it on video, which I'm like, why is he recording right now? But he basically is walking uphill backwards while this mountain lion is following him, and she's following him because he was hiking and he came upon her cubs. And so she follows him up this hill for, I think, maybe 6 to 8 minutes in the video. And it's just terrifying because she's getting back on her hind legs and swiping at him and growling, and he's pretty much thinking he's gonna die. And when I was a kid, when I was hiking, there were all these mountain lion signs everywhere. And then I think there was one woman that actually got attacked in that park by a mountain lion. So, as a teenager hiking in those spaces, I was always acutely aware of the fact that that could happen, and sort of what to do if I did see a mountain lion, which in my memory is that you get real big and you yell a lot. You absolutely do not run, because then it's like she's like a cat, right? She thinks that she's stalking you, and you're her prey. So if you turn around and run, of course you're not going to outrun her. So, I'm talking through these things because these are the type of symbols that are part of our history, right? They're part of our childhood or our memories growing up, and these symbols can become part of our work as we get older. And now, so I could put a mountain lion in there. I could think about some of those plants and animals that I saw in nature while I was hiking. Lots of oak trees in the Bay Area, scrub oak, some sycamores. All right, so now I just added her arm, her shoulder. Let me turn this so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. And I think I need to think about how her arms are going to be embracing the child. Right now I'm just going to kind of put them like they're sort of gently resting by her side, and then I can decide later what I'm going to do with the forearm in the hand. I have only encountered a wild animal once. I was not in California. I was actually camping in Canada, and I was in a campground, and a bear came into my campground. And the first thing I heard were just people screaming bear, 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 and yelling. So I had absolutely no idea where the bear was. And then I got so freaked out that I got out of my tent and I pulled my sleeping bag into my car, and I just kind of like hung out in my car for a while. And then I saw the bear. The bear kind of came into the campground space. And at that point, I was like, okay, forget this. And I turned the car on and I drove out of the campground. And I just kind of drove around for a while and then came back, but it was a little bit scary. Definitely was not getting back in that tent that night. But that's pretty much it. And when I was hiking, I was in Vancouver Island. There's a lot of wildlife, and I think Vancouver Island has one of the largest populations of mountain lions. Not really sure why, but that's what I was told when I got there. And I was hiking and camping by myself. I was traveling alone, and the people in the tour station said, absolutely do not go hiking by yourself because of the mountain lions. So I was really bummed about that because I was looking forward to doing a lot of hiking, and I just didn't because they scared me. So that would be kind of neat to maybe put a mountain lion. I'm realizing now, just talking through this, how much a part of my history they are. I could put them in some work, and that would be meaningful to me. So as I'm attaching these upper arms, I'm realizing how they're just too thick, they're too big. So I'm taking a tool and I'm kind of shaving them down, because it has to kind of come to a point here for the elbow. So I have to get rid of some of that clay. I don't need all that clay. I sort of sculpted them out of a tube. Okay, so my figure is really quite wet still, but she's a little stronger, a little sturdier than she was last week, which is good because I'm adding more weight to her. All right, I'm going to add the child's head now. Before I do, I might want to think just for a second about her chest, and if I need to do any like simple carving and sculpting of the chest, I might want to do this now because it's going to be a lot harder once I get the head attached, the baby's head attached. And then if there's any texture then I want to put on her, I might want to do that before I attach the baby's head. So I'm just using this nice wooden tool. If you don't have one of these, you can use the loop tool, which would work too. I would maybe use the round end because it's more of an organic form. But I personally really like this because it's got a flatter surface area and I can kind of sort of scrape and not have all these lines. You know, then we were talking about texture. You know, the figure doesn't have to be smooth. It doesn't have to be realistic in its texture. So maybe I put some bumps on her and then I could sort of like smooth them out. And maybe all of a sudden she looks like she's made out of stone. That's kind of neat. So I kind of go back and forth, like I texturize her and then I smooth it out. And then I go back and I texturize and then I smooth out. It's going to be hard to get in here with that tool, so I can use another tool to kind of emulate that texture. And you know, the more texture you put on the surface of something, the more interesting your glaze is going to be. We looked at an artist named Adrienne Arleo, and she makes these figures and she turns the body into a completely different thing. Like the last one we looked at was a woman figure that looked like a beehive. So she was all honeycomb. So you can really kind of think about that and consider that your figure does not need to have a realistic texture. Yeah, I already like that. And then I could even use this. You know, this might be a little bit difficult because it's such a small surface, but maybe I can get a few of those little flowers in her shoulder or something. Maybe she's texturized and the child is smooth. You might want to think about contrast. Contrast in form, contrast in texture, contrast in glaze surface. Contrast is a way to draw the viewer's eye in. So all you have to do is think about your basic elements and make a contrast between two of them. Color, form, texture, line, space, value. Okay, so I have her shoulders on. So I think I'm going to make her feet now. Actually, I'm going to attach this little guy's head first. And I'm going to attach his head to the neck. And I'm also going to attach his head to her body. The more places you can attach something, the stronger your figure will be. Reminding you to, you know, if you've decided to tune out, you're probably not hearing this, but maybe you will later if you watch the demo. Tuning out is not a good idea because you're going to miss a lot of these steps. And a lot of these steps I'm going to be looking at and for in your sculpture when I grade it and when we review it. So if I can tell that you're not learning the things that I'm teaching in the outcome of your sculpture, you're going to miss out on some learning and a lot of points. So I am very perceptive and aware of what you're making and the reflection of that on your learning. So show up is what I'm trying to say. Make sure you show up. All right, so I've got the head attached to the body. I've got it attached to his neck, and I will do details later. But I know he's sturdy and he's on there. And I want to think about the gesture of his head too. She's kind of leaning this way, so maybe for variety and contrast, I can lean his head the other way. Create kind of like a zigzag. Let me show you what I'm working on. So I'm going to tilt his head a little bit to this side. And while I have access, I might do a little bit of carving just to kind of identify his eye sockets and his nose. I'm actually scraping away here. going to be adding clay later and taking it away. Kind of using my fingertips like my nails to scrape. I think I'll have to add a chin. You don't want to make the face too flat. There's a tendency to kind of make it too flat. So you want to look at it from the side too. Make sure you're not flattening his face. That he has a profile and a bridge to his nose. I'll go in later with it really tiny little tools and add actual eyeballs and eyelids and upper lip and all that. Hair, ears, more of a chin. In fact, I might just add that chin right now because I can tell he needs it. Really excited to see your whips today. I think the last time I looked at your whips, everyone was just kind of pinching out their basic forms. So I'm anxious to see your figures progress. Hopefully they did not dry out over the break, over the weekend. Make sure that you are continuing to check on them and hydrate. Okay, so you can kind of see, let me hold it up to the camera. What's going on here? They still look, you know, pretty archaic, pretty raw. They're going to look much different than this at the end, but we have the basics. Okay, so I'm going to make her feet. I think I'm going to attach her ears and his ears. He needs arms. So I'm going to work on those things. I might even work on her. Nope, I'm not going to work on the rest of her arms yet because I think I need to put the foxes there first. So her feet. I'm going to pull off two pieces of clay and try to make them the same size before I start sculpting. You might want to look at a picture of a foot or your own foot. Feet, you think you know what a foot looks like until you actually sculpt a foot, and then you're like, how does it go? At the moment, I'm just kind of working on the arch. They're going to be very abstract. And the heel, and I'll probably sculpt up a little ankle. So I have some surface area to attach it to the leg. Takes a little time to kind of move the clay around, find the right form. I'm not going to add toes yet. She's toeless at the moment. Something very satisfying about sculpting tiny people. It's like they're a reflection of who we are. Okay, I'll probably go in and carve on that later, but at the moment, here's the little foot. Before I attach this one, I'm going to do the other one so that I can make them similar. And remember, your big toes on the inside of your body. So the foot needs to be kind of angled that way. Even though I'm not sculpting toes yet, I still have to sculpt the foot the right way. Same thing with this one. Thinking about, you know, plants and things that have meant something to me in my past. My parents lived down in a town called Three Rivers, which I had mentioned before is, you know, in threat of fire right now. There's still a threat because it's the gateway town to the Sequoia National Park. And actually, my mom just lives there now. And at one point, it's been our family home now for about 20 years. And at one point, I went around and I collected all of the flowers, wildflowers, and leaves and plants that I could find in the area, and I pressed them all. I made a flower press, and I pressed all of those flowers. And then after they were all pressed and dried, it took a couple weeks or maybe even a couple months, I don't remember. I took them out and I arranged them in a picture frame, and then I gave that to my parents for a anniversary or something. And all those plants have kind of become part of me. They after I did that, they started showing up in paintings that I was making, and as symbols. They were symbols of my life. So as an artist, you want to start thinking about those things. They will help you along the way. Okay, so I have these 2 feet. I don't know, one feels much bigger than the other. I think I'm gonna cut this one down a bit. There we go. Okay, now this is a fragile thing we're attaching, so I'm going to actually attach it on the ankle and the back of the pedestal. The more surface area you attach, the stronger it will be. And the slower it will dry too. If you have something sticking out and it's not attached to anything else, it's going to dry really quickly because the air can get all around it. So I'm going to score down here and the base. Her feet are just going to kind of sit. They're going to be touching the pedestal. And I think I might need to torque this calf a bit to actually make that look right. And then that toe is sticking out there. It's going to be a little bit fragile. It's going to be delicate. If you bump it when it's bone dry, it could just break off and snap like a twig. So compression, compression. And I'm going to take a tool. You can kind of see here that there's sort of a gap here. I'm going to take a tool and physically attach that foot to the entire base, all around. Make it part of the base. And then I can create that false line or that false separation later in the way that I carve it. Okay, so now I've got feet. I'm gonna carve this just a little bit because there's sort of a bump right there. I don't like that. It's bothering me. Make sure that the position you put your figure in looks natural. You don't want the feet sort of sticking out weirdly or knees in the wrong place. Okay, so almost completely done with the figure, building the figures. I'm gonna hold off on their arms because I want their arms to be resting on the fox. Feeling like her head is getting a little bit dry, and that's probably because it's alone, right? It's sticking out, it's not attached to anything else. So it's drying a little faster than the rest of the body. All right, so my next adventure is to build the fox. 2 foxes. So I think I'm going to keep the fox's form really simple, and I'm going to pinch out 2 pieces of clay that are the same size, So that would be sort of the body. Turn it so you can see what I'm doing. And then the head would be kind of like right underneath her elbow. If she were resting it on a chair, the armrest would be the top of the fox's head. So I think I need more clay. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it out with a tool. I'm going to make a coil for the body, and I'm going to keep it really, really simple. Pull out my picture of the fox here. So sweet. So it's basically just kind of a triangular shape that comes up at the top, and then I would probably need to add a separate snout and the ears. And then the legs would be maybe just really simply kind of carved in sort of low relief. You can do that. You can do stuff that's low relief as well. Okay, so I've got 2 balls of clay that are the same size, and then I'm going to make them into coils. Give myself some space here. I'm going to make one end of this a little wider than the other. And I'm not gonna push this all the way through this time. I'm gonna just go to the top. I can kind of feel where it is. And then I'm mostly gonna put pressure on the bottom part of the thicker part. This is the bottom of the fox, so I can hollow it out. I want to keep that shape. I want this to be wider, and I want this to be skinnier. This is the head, this is the butt. And then I can go in there with my fingers and kind of widen the base. Sculpt it from the inside. Don't make it too thin. You want it to be, like I'm going to carve into this, right? So I don't want it to be too thin. Yeah, perfect. Perfect size. Do the same exact thing to the other side. I can give them some variety later, maybe. Like maybe the gesture of the fox's head is slightly different. Maybe one of them is looking at the child. Maybe one of them is looking at the mother. Those are creative choices I can make along the way. Pretty simple form here. Then I'm going to look at my fox picture. And I might just take this tool and sort of draw in where those little legs come up. I'll take a needle tool so you can see better what I'm doing. Those are the legs. I'm not cutting in too deep. I'm just drawing on the surface. Then the hind legs would kind of come like that. And kind of draw in where I would put that snout, where the eyes would go. Top of his head is a little bit more squared off, and then I'll add the ears later. I could even go in and kind of sculpt out a bit of what the face would look like. So now I'm just pushing in, creating sort of a low relief of the legs. You might even want to scoop out a little bit on the belly, just a smidge. I don't want too much because then I'll lose my wall of clay. Again, we're not doing details, we're just working on form at the moment. So I could go in and add a fur texture later if I wanted to. See, I've got a little leg kind of carved in there. Basic form. Surface comes later. You have this nice hollow form, so you can push in. You can stick your finger inside and push out. You have room for sculpting. It's three-dimensional, right? So look at the back. I definitely will put a tail on this guy. Okay, so now I have sort of the front legs and the back legs. I still have my hollow form. Put paws later. I think I need to make the neck a little skinnier. I could even use the clay that's in here to kind of sculpt out the snout. Let's see what other pictures I have here. I don't have any other fox. I might need to look at the profile of a fox too, not just the front. Do you have any questions so far? I know you guys are probably not here with me, everybody, but if you have a question, please feel free to ask. This is your time to communicate with me. It's got little cheeks too.
Ms. Gunninger?
Yeah.
So you're working pretty fast. How fast do you expect us to like get our form done?
Like I said in the last demo, I like to be a couple steps ahead of you guys so that everyone can work at the pace they need to work at. So what I do is I basically look at your whips, and I base my decisions on due dates based on how far you guys are getting. So you do not need to be where I'm at right now. I'm sort of a bunch of steps ahead of you guys. That's a good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have a general idea when you're gonna make that due date yet?
How about I look at your whips today, and then next class I will have, like, I'm going to be giving you due dates that are like, have your form, all your pieces constructed by this date. And then the next one would be like, have your carving done, kind of like step you into it. So I don't want, we definitely have to be done with this sculpture. I'd like to be done with this sculpture before Thanksgiving break.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. But for sure, take advantage of these class periods. That's what, I don't want you to have to feel like you have to work on it over the weekends or, for homework. We should be able to do this in class. Okay, so see how quickly I pinched out a little fox figure just from a hollow coil. And then the back, I don't know what the back of a fox looks like, but I'll have to look at a photo. And think about the fact that maybe I don't even need to sculpt the back of that fox because he'll be kind of leaning up against a tree. Yeah, the big tree right there. And that's going to be tricky to even fit the trees on there. We'll have to get creative with that. Okay. So I'm going to keep working until 11:30. So I'm going to just keep on trucking here. Now that I have this basic fox form, I can make this one a little faster. It's the neat thing about sculpting two things that are supposed to look the same is that you will have inevitably some variations in it, and that's kind of neat because it'll look sort of like two different foxes, right? Because they're not, each fox doesn't look the same. Just like humans, right? We all are variations on ourselves, of ourselves. So if you look at like their two faces they're similar, but they're different. And that's kind of neat. Okay, so I've got those sculpted. Now here's an example of maybe putting some texture on them before I even attach, because then I can't get into the side very easily. So I might just take my needle tool, or maybe a bigger, this is kind of a scoopy point. That might be a little bit more refined than the needle tool is just kind of a strong point. I'm going to go in there and just add some of that fox texture, and I'll probably smooth some of it back out again so it doesn't look like I just dug a tool in there and that's it. Sort of a big fan of the texture smooth, like back and forth. I really love looking at ceramic surfaces that are kind of confusing. Like, how did they get that texture? I love that. Because it's part of the art form, is to learn how to manipulate this clay in different ways to make it not look like clay, really, or to kind of enhance the fact that it is clay. So I'm sort of taking my tool and I'm digging in and pushing up so that that fur doesn't, it's not all just laying down flat. There's a real texture to it. And this is really kind of a fun, quick way of making this look like fur. And the fur on the leg is going to be much, much finer. So I might smooth that out more. Now, remember, this is not your final pass of the surface. This is the first go at it. This is like the underpainting. You'll probably go in later and do a little bit more carving, more texturizing when it's leather hard, but it's a lot more depth to a surface when you can work on it, the texture in multiple stages. If I'm going to teach you guys anything this year, it's how to make interesting textures. It's one of my missions in ceramics to make sure that you guys know the potential that you have with making a texture. And like what a glaze can do in a texture. That is really like probably the most interesting thing about ceramics. That's my opinion, though. You might have a different opinion. I'm going to create the eye sockets and I'll put an eyeball in there later, maybe when it's a little drier. And I should probably add the ears too. So now it's starting to look more fox-like. So no one should be finishing their sculpture at this point. Clay is a slow art form. It's slow and it takes time and a lot of attention. So you have to work on it consistently. Like you can't like set it down and come back to it 3 weeks later without touching it it will be dried out. You have to babysit it. You have to, it's really a sensitive medium. All right, now I'm adding the ears, looking at the spacing, size. So this can also give your character a lot of personality, right? The positioning and the gesture of the ears. So make sure to really attach those. So if you're doing anything for your figure that's fantastical, you're adding wings, you're adding like different animal parts, make sure that those are all attached really well, especially if they're more fragile like these ears. So I don't know if Fox's ears really bend like this, but I might put one down just for more personality. Okay, so now I'm going to attach. This is where it gets really kind of fun. So I'm going to put that one there. I want her to be maybe overhanging on the pedestal just a little bit. Not by much, but and remember she's sort of like theoretically like the arms of the chair, but he's fantastical as well. So I'm going to score up the whole side of her body. Everywhere where the fox is going to be touching, you want to score. And remember she's a hollow form, so eventually you will have to poke a hole if you attach her fully to the figure. So now I'm scoring this all up. And I'm putting water on. And then I'm going to very carefully kind of stand back and really look at where you want her to sit. Take a look from a distance. You want the fox head to have a gesture, right? Like the female is this way, baby is that way, the fox on the right. Maybe if the baby's arm is on this fox, their heads are tilted the same way. And maybe if her arm is on this fox, then her head is tilted that way. Or the opposite. I think that's kind of cute. I'm going to tilt it this way a bit. I mean, there's nothing cuter than a little puppy or dog looking up at you and tilting his head. So much gesture and emotion in that moment. Aw, makes me want to go, aw. All right, so now you can see that I've just basically kind of stuck the fox there, but now I need to really attach it. So I'm going to take my tool, I'm going to go in. You could use a butter knife if you don't have a wooden tool, and I'm going to really kind of grab a good chunk of that fox. I can clean it up later. I'm going to attach it to the side, the bottom, and I'm going to probably have to close up this empty space. I don't want it to just be a hole right there, so I'll have to work on that. I'm gonna have to figure out like what's happening with the arm of the woman in that fox. I'll have to figure that out later. Turn it around, make sure you're attaching back side as well. All sides. And then go in there while it's wet and kind of clean it up a little bit. It'll save you some carving if you can make that attachment look clean to start. You can even go back and kind of texturize the part that you smoothed out. And because this is wet, I'm going to actually just attach something there. Okay, I'm going to work for 10 more minutes. Hopefully you guys are making some progress and some headway today. Just reminding you that I do go back before I grade your whip. I go back and I look at last week's whip to make sure that you're actually working on your sculpture, that you're not just posting the same picture of what you posted last week. Holding you accountable for this time. Okay, so I've closed up that opening there, and I might want to go in and kind of sculpt it. There should be like a little paw here, and this is the back haunch of the fox. Sort of, and then think about the gravity of it. Like if it's actually sitting, hanging over the edge, like it should look like it's hanging over the edge. So I'm going to kind of slump it down over this, so it looks like it's kind of hanging over. So you can kind of see. Go back and do some texturizing. Again, this is just the first pass of texture. I'm going to go and carve more later. I like my sculpture about 10 times more now that I've added that fox. It's funny how that can happen. You can just have this moment where you're like, I'm not liking it at all, and then boom, you add something, and then it's just like, oh, it's so much different, or I took it to the next level. You know, and it just, as I'm working, you guys, I've always been a firm believer that you should, as a teacher, you should demonstrate your art, demonstrate who you are as an artist to your students, and not be shy to do that. But I also understand too that sometimes that can be intimidating, right? Because, you know, I've been making clay for a long time. I've been working on clay for a long time. So I do not expect your pieces to be at the, you know, at the quality in terms of finished quality that I'm showing you right now. I'm just showing you what it looks like to work on clay. And I have certain expectations for you that are realistic for where you're at with clay. So just don't be stressed out about watching me make this and be like, why I can't, you know, I'm like struggling to make it look realistic, or I'm struggling to put these forms together. That is all normal, right? When you first start working with clay, you have to struggle with it before you can figure out how best to work with it. There's really no bypassing the struggle. Especially when you guys sit down on the potter's wheel. You are just gonna absolutely have a piece that flies off the wheel or flops. There is no way around that. In fact, if you don't have a piece that flops, then that tells me you're not really pushing it far enough, because you kind of have to find where your edge is. You have to find that breaking point before you know that you're actually pushing it enough. Everybody that works in clay has a piece blow up in the kiln at some point. I have. Everybody that's worked in clay has dropped their piece and broken it. I have. I was driving a finished sculpture once to an opening, a gallery opening, to install it for an opening. And someone in front of me, I didn't have the piece packed in the car well enough, and someone in front of me slammed on their brakes, and I had to slam on my brakes, and luckily I did not hit that person, but my entire sculpture flew forward in the back seat or in the trunk and broke. So I had to call the gallery and tell them that I could not put my piece in the show because I had broken it on the way there. So those things happen. Okay, so see how quickly that a second fox came about, because I did the first one and I sort of had a knowledge of how I was going to do it. was so mad when that happened. Oh my gosh, I was fuming. Fuming mad. It's so heartbreaking when you spend so much time on something and you're almost there, right? All you have to do is install it in the show and then it's over. One time I fired a sculpture 20 times. 20 times because I just didn't like the surface of it, and it wasn't what I was looking for. And you can do that, but every time you add more glaze to your piece, you just don't know what you're going to get, because you just added so many layers of glass and glaze on top of it that it's become its own monster. It's just its own glaze concoction. At UC Davis, we had a big vat of glaze. We called it crazy glaze. And so you mix your own glazes when you're in college. And if you had a bunch of extra glaze that you weren't going to use anymore, she didn't want you to waste that material, that raw material. So she would have you dump it in the crazy glaze bucket. And then every once in a while you glaze a piece with the crazy glaze. And it's different every time, right? Because every time someone adds a new part of their glaze to the crazy glaze, it changes. So that's kind of fun. All right, so this fox, so this guy's leaning this way, and this one, kind of like that she sort of perked up, like sitting taller. I think I'm gonna leave her that way. She's proud. Okay, so the last thing I'm gonna do is attach her, and then I'm gonna kind of show you the finished product. My whip for today, Miss Gruninger's going to post her whip for today. And then we'll wash our hands and get ready to post our whips. And then I'd actually like to go through and look at your whips before class ends and make some comments here and there. I'm not going to attach her head because I don't know what I want to do with that arm yet. If you find that you're rushing to finish something, don't, like I am right now, be careful, don't skip steps. If you skip a step, later on you'll regret it. Okay, so I'm holding this. I don't really recommend that you guys pick your pieces up like this, but I'm going to because I need to get this tool in there. Now she's not completely over the edge, so I don't need to add extra clay. There's more room for this one on this side. You know, and I might want to add clothes to my figure. I think I was going to add some clothes to her. Don't have to, but you can. And the clothes might give her a little bit more personality, tell you something more about her. Okay, so this is what I had so hard for me to directionally challenge when it comes to the webcam here. Okay, so this is what I have so far. She's sitting there, I've got the little boy, and I've got one fox kind of tilting her head slightly and then the one sitting straight up. And that's all I did today. I added head, baby head, her shoulders, her feet. I texturized her a bit. I sculpted the baby's head a little bit, and then I made these foxes and attached them. And then you'll kind of see the back too, which is fun. Look at your sculpture always from all sides. Be so careful here. Here's the back. And there's gesture in the back too, the way she's leaning and that little fox, the way he's leaning is kind of sweet. Okay. These are starting, they're not drying, but yes, they are drying, but they're still wet still. So if you notice that anything on your piece is starting to feel a little bit dry, just dab a tiny bit of water on it Do not take water and squish it and squirt it all over your piece. If you do that, you're gonna wake up in the next morning and have it all collapsed. So I like literally am just kind of tapping on maybe the ears of the fox because they could dry really fast. His feet, maybe her feet. Just adding moisture that's going to become part of the biosphere of this sculpture once I wrap it up in plastic. And then these are definitely need some water because I don't want them to, I want to sculpt them still. I don't want them to become so dry that I can't bend them anymore. I'm getting close to that. So I'm just definitely gonna get those wet. Okay. So I'm gonna take a photo of this and post it so you guys can see. Wash my hands for a sec. Do I have any questions before we close out class? We have 5 minutes left. All right, guys, why don't you all come back? And I would like you to post your whips and do your checkouts. Come on back. Post your whip and do your checkout. If we don't have time to look at the whips today, we will look at them at the start of class on Thursday. Cameras on, please. I want to see that you're here. Anyone have any questions about their sculpture specifically, or does anyone want to show me, like hold it up so I can see it? I want to see. Go wash your hands and post your stuff. Okay, Jonah, we've been working on this sculpture for 2 class periods now. Okay, I expect that you're further than a pinch pot. I'm gonna call you guys out if I'm seeing that you're not working at pace. All right, Kat. Looks good so far. Is it drying out? It looks like the body is dry.
It's kind of getting to, I had the flash on, so highlighted a lot of areas, but a few parts are getting a little drier, like the kneecaps, and you can see like the elbows are a little dry. But a lot of it is because I took a picture with the flash on.
Okay. Just go ahead and make sure they stay nice and moist. You don't want them to.
Yeah, I made sure to wrap it and put a little more, what's it called? I made some slip for it, yeah.
Cool. Looks good so far. I like that you showed me both angles. All right, Christina, that looks good. That's a nice torso right there. I can see some musculature. Oh, is that the way she's going to be sitting? I like that. It's a kind of a vulnerable pose. I like that a lot. Okay, looks good so far. Thanks for posting. I want to see Sienna's and Zoe's. There's Zoe's. Oh, look at that gesture. That's beautiful. Head down. Very nice. Looks good so far. Nice proportions. Okay, I'm going to come back and check out Sienna's. And who else am I missing from ceramics too? I'll come back and peek. I'm going to glance at ceramics one really quick, and then you guys are free to go. I'm hungry. My stomach was growling through that demo. Did you guys hear that? I hope not, because it was recorded. Okay, Sydney. Okay, very nice. Looks like a good start. I think what I'm going to ask you guys to do next WIP is to post your drawings with your figures so that I can't remember what your original plan was. These are all good starts though. Okay, I think that was it. Let me see, refresh. All right, guys, please don't forget your WIPs. Remember, all your WIPs added up equal half of your project grade. All right, you guys, it is 11:45. It is currently time to end class, so I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you on Thursday. Don't forget your Wednesday work. Bye.
Thank you, Ms. Gunninger.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me do ceramics. I get to sit here for an hour and sculpt. It's so fun.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye, you guys.
Ms. Greninger?
Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know, sorry, a piece of clay on my face, that I decided to restart my piece.
Okay.
Because it had dried out too much and the proportions weren't accurate enough to my taste to try and like recover that, and like my legs weren't even attached to like my body, and so trying to do that with really wet clay into like kind of like leather hard clay, it just didn't seem realistic to me.
Okay.
So I said that in the post, but that's why, yeah, I was typing all that out. And so today I just started recycling the clay.
Oh, nice. That's smart.
And cleaning up my board because that was starting to get like water mold. So
okay.
So that's what I did today. Just wanted to.
Yeah. No worries. I understand that, and I know you'll catch up.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.